You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Coomer, and as chair, I now call to order the rescheduled meeting of the directors of Atlantic Yards Community Development Corporation for Wednesday, August 6, 2025. I'd like to note for the record, this meeting is being webcast. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, we welcome public comment on the items on today's agenda. After each item is presented, any comments are received from directors will allow any members of the public attending today to provide comments. All comments should be limited to 2 minutes, should only address the item under consideration. Also note for the record, the public was given the opportunity to comment on today's agenda items by submitting their written comments by 3 p.m. yesterday. For the record, two written comments were received from the public when this meeting was originally scheduled for July 15th. And those have been provided to the directors or posted to the meeting website. And the final item on our agenda today is public comments. At that time, we'll have an opportunity for any members of the public attending to provide comments on non-agenda related matters, or if there are further comments on agenda matters, we'll entertain those as well. Please keep in mind that it's our intention to try to conclude today's meeting by 5 p.m., which is our allotted time. I'd like to ask the directors now whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. Then be sure that you can excuse yourself from a discussion or vote with regard to such items. Or hearing none. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes of the directors meeting of March 25, 2025. You've all been provided the minutes. I have one small correction, but if anyone else has anything, please speak up. I just have one correction on page 20 in the second to last line of the middle paragraph. The word constructed should actually be construed. It should read, Chair Coomer noted he did not want his statement to be construed as an agreement with those claims. That's referencing the claims for unavoidable delay. I just wanted the board to acknowledge all the factors that are going to play in the timing as well. So that was the only correction I had. Anyone else? Yeah.
Also on page 20, a minor typo. In the first sentence of the last paragraph, the United States of America should read United States.
Okay. Does that include or not include Canada?
So far, not.
Okay.
Day is young.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else? No? Anyone else have anything? Okay, hearing none. Oh, did you have something?
No, I just want to move accept. Maybe second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of the March 25 meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And I would now like to ask Anna Paisior, ESD's Senior Vice President of Community Relations, to continue with the agenda and provide us with some updates, follow-ups since our last meeting. As a reminder, this item is being presented for everyone's information only. No votes will be required, although no motions are included as well. Anna?
All right, I'm actually going to hand it over to Bill Kochman to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so first, just want to make a staffing announcement on ESD's side. You may recall Joy Huang, Director of Real Estate in these meetings. She has recently left the agency, unfortunately. I'd like to introduce you all to Christopher Wassif, joining the Atlantic Yards project team. Christopher is a Senior Project Manager with us at ESD.
Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
And could you just spell your last name for the record?
Sure. Wassif.
Thank you.
So that's the first item.
Okay.
Then the second item, want to update you all on the permitted developer application that we have in front of us regarding the remainder portions of the project. So we at ESD have been presented with a permitted developer package from a joint venture that includes Cirrus Real Estate Partners, Elcor, which is a developer, Fortress, USIF and Fortress, and Greenland. Just in case you're not familiar, Cirrus is a labor pension-backed real estate investment firm, and Elcor is a multifamily housing developer and operator with a portfolio of more than 10,000 units. They've done projects in New York City and throughout the Northeast region generally.
Joe, what would you say is their most prominent development in New York City?
In New York City, I don't know most prominent, but we did take a visit to a project they have over in Coney Island, 1515 Surf Avenue. Recent construction, it's about 30 stories, I want to say. It's very nice.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so USIF and Fortress and Greenland, they will not be involved in day-to-day management and decision making on the project. Just want to,
I'm sorry,
clear.
I distracted.
Yeah.
Who will not be involved?
USIF and Fortress and Greenland.
I see.
So as you know, I did say that the joint venture includes, the entities including USIF and Fortress and Greenland. However, in terms of the management of the project, USIF and Fortress and Greenland are not involved.
What is their role?
Well, they're basically putting up their investments that they've already, provided to the project. So they don't really have an active management role. It's that, the investments for the platform work and the loans that were put up are being put up to the project.
And is this all, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Are we only talking about the rail yards now?
You're getting to my next talking point.
All right, before you get to that, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, follow-up question was more so you said the developer, Encore, when that Surf Avenue, that's their most recent development. And what is the mix of that development?
That was a Affordable New York tax abatement program project. So it was 25% of the units were affordable and 75% were market rate.
25% at 130 AMI.
Correct.
So when you say, now going back to the question with regard to USIF and Fortress, that they're putting up their investment, does that mean that USIF is going to follow through on the foreclosure and take title to those entities, those Greenland entities?
That for the platform sites, that would be the case. Yes.
Sites. Okay.
Yeah. So let me. I just have a few other things and any other questions. So Gib, you started asking this. So our initial submission and what we've been sharing with you all to date was for the platform sites specifically. We had not gotten a submission from any combination of these entities for Site 5. However, we recently did receive a permitted developer application for Site 5 that was presented to us from Cirrus, Greenland, and Alcor. And that was
is that a
separate?
That's a
separate. So our documents have us, have separate approval processes for these two portions of the project. One will be, jumping a little bit. So
go ahead.
One will be a foreclosure, which will be the platform site.
Platform site.
And then Site 5 will be a transfer.
Transfer to whom?
The entity consisting of Greenland, Cirrus, Alcor.
So Greenland's going to transfer its interest in Site 5 to a JV of which it's a member.
Correct. Okay,
then what is going back to the platform? If Greenland's part of that JV, but its entities are being foreclosed, what does it have left to contribute to the joint venture?
Well, all the money, all the investment in the platform work. They invested hundreds of millions of dollars.
So prior invest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's not new money.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and just a note on the platform application, that this was also presented to the MTA. The MTA is reviewing this as well. They have a permitted developer approval process, and we're coordinating with them on the timing of that. So since the initial submission of the platform, as I mentioned, we have the Site 5 submission now, and we are looking at this holistically, which I think overall is a good thing for us and for the project. And because of this, I know we had articulated a deadline of August 1st for completing our review of the platform JV, permitted developer JV. Since we have this Site 5 entity coming in, we're doing this all coordinated with the MTA as well, who has their own process and they're going through that. We are looking to complete the review in September. That's what we're targeting. And then last here, just a note, we have been doing asking questions, going back and forth. And just to note that, they have been responsive, providing us with information as we need it. And yeah. So, trending positively, but I'm sure there are plenty of questions, so we can go on to them.
So let's just talk about the structure of this post, assuming all of these things can get approved. Previously, we had a master development structure with a single entity who has the rights in the MDA. What do we have? It sounds like is anybody in this going to end up having that role?
I think it would be an entity that would be consisting of Cirrus and Alcor.
Okay, so at some point, so Greenland still has the rights in the MDA, so they're going to transfer those rights to Cirrus and Alcor?
Correct.
Okay. And
For
then,
Site 5.
no,
For
for the MDA overall,
Oh.
and then they'll have the
Agreement.
JV
Right.
where they'll be involved with Cirrus
Okay.
and Alcor.
Got it.
So, that's effectively, Atlantic Yard's developer, as he's referred to in the MDA, will be
Cirrus, Alcor.
Cirrus and Alcor. Okay. I have a lot of questions. On this,
well-
and so.
Yeah, go ahead. I have some too, but I want to,
So I want to, I want to start by expressing my extreme frustration that our meeting of May 29 was canceled. And I would like to know for information, who is able to cancel a meeting of this board? Who was it that decided that meeting should be canceled? And who will have that responsibility going forward? And the reason I ask this is because this body was constituted in part to review proposed changes to the project plan and agreement and advise the ESD board, and to make recommendations to ESD on ways to approve and expedite developer responsiveness to public obligations and increase transparency of project development, and developing recommendations related to this project, including in relation to unanticipated issues, which I think is what we have right now. And 2 days before the affordable housing deadline, we could have met and you could have gotten that advice from this board. We could have talked about the situation. The board could have had an opportunity to discuss and could have weighed in. But instead, we were told you had already made the decision not to seek collection of the liquidated damages for failure to meet the affordable housing deadline, and that our meeting was just canceled. This is not transparency. And the existence of this board is a public commitment of Empire State Development. It's not a nice thing that we all just get together and do every once in a while. This was agreed on in exchange for a community agreeing not to litigate the project. And it was agreed on because there was extreme lack of transparency leading up to those events in 2014. And it doesn't get better if we don't meet, especially in a situation like this. So I really want to understand how this is going to change in the future. Big decisions will be made, decisions that we are supposed to be advising on. And I don't think we should be notified about them after the fact. I think we should be able to meet and fulfill what it is this organization is charged with doing. So I'm lodging a protest personally and formally over the cancellation of our meeting on May 29 because I think it is antithetical to the purpose of this body.
do you want anyone from ESD to address that?
I'd like to know who it is that decided to cancel that meeting and under what authority.
So, as we've discussed with all of you sort of individually, at times we wished that the proposed permitted developer submission had come in way in advance of the May deadline. we had hoped that it would all come together earlier so that we were able to present to you what the permitted developer possibility could look like. And so we wanted to do that together. We didn't have enough information at that point. As Joel said, they've been responsive, but it's taking us a little while to collect all the information, even to describe what Joel just described to you. And so in May, we weren't ready to describe any other possibilities, any other the permitted developer process. We didn't have enough information to discuss.
And so, so it's good. ESD made the decision to
But who,
cancel the meeting, and I'd like to take under advisement that issue and maybe have some discussions with council about, appropriate process for canceling
Yeah,
and
but it's
scheduling.
important because there was also a number of other events that took place.
Yeah.
And why should ESD have the responsibility or the ability to cancel our meeting?
at a minimum, the chair should have described some discretion in that, the meetings of this board can't just be canceled by the agency. That doesn't seem that doesn't seem consistent with the spirit under which this was created.
And also seeing as though as board members, we don't have any direction as to where the meetings could be held, which is another thing altogether in itself. But just one.
Sorry,
What is that?
is this an issue? Is 55 Hanson?
Yeah, we've always wanted it to be a 50.
Oh, okay.
So that folks could attend.
We made a point. That's why we heard you.
Been here for.
Every other.
So it's clear for the record, the default location for all of our meetings is going to be this conference room. There's a March budget meeting exception because of the numbers of staff that need to attend that meeting. But otherwise,
This looks like a lot of space.
no, it's not a space issue. It's a agency efficiency issue.
It's one meeting.
One meeting a year. I'm sorry, but did you have anything further on that?
Yeah, I didn't know if questions were answered. That's why I wanted to pause before we.
Yeah, if we can't answer the question of being confident that these meetings, once scheduled, will take place, I at this meeting, I hope we can answer it at the next meeting. And again, I'm just very frustrated in that sequence of events. I have a question that comes from the minutes of our last meeting, which we've approved, in which Joel said, and he was paraphrasing Commissioner Knight, he said, absent ESD receiving a permitted developer package and a proposal and a plan prior to that date, being June 1, ESD would have to move forward with pursuing the liquidated damages against the incumbent developer. So I want to know, did ESD receive a permitted developer package, a proposal, and a plan prior to June 1?
We received those, and remember that the permitted developer is stepping into the existing agreements. So we're not talking with them about, I just want to make, for the record on plan, we're not talking about modifications here. They're stepping into the agreement. So yes, we received the permitted developer application for the platform sites by June 1.
And just to follow up on that, I think it would be helpful to get out on the record what it means to be approved as a permitted developer.
So in the development agreement, I think another document and the leases, there's a definition. I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know it exactly off the top of my head. An entity with 10 years, basically an affiliate of Forest City or Greenland, or an entity with 10 years of experience as a construction manager or a developer, or an entity that's reasonably acceptable to ESD.
So it means being qualified, essentially. Qualified to be the permit.
To have development capacity, construction capacity, either run, right?
It doesn't mean that you're going over a new plan or anything that you're approving.
No.
Okay. But I'm sorry.
But on that question,
capacity.
new plan, Does that mean that when you're talking about site 5, there is an understanding that the 910-foot building and the other building will be on that site? Is that a
There-
basis upon which they've agreed to participate as a team?
We've made clear that they are stepping into the existing documents, that they can put forward contours of a plan that we're going to talk about soon about what engagement on those contours look like. But what they are, if they are assuming something else, we have made clear that we are not blessing anything or assuming anything other than the approved documents at this point.
Sorry for Drew.
Just a follow-up question, because you had mentioned capacity of the developers. Are we saying capacity as it fits to the scale of this project, or capacity within their development rights? How is that necessary?
Scale, right, someone with experience to execute a project of this type.
Experience with working with communities, experience with the logistics of the project itself.
So Elmcor meets that STEM.
Up to this point, we've gotten information from, a variety of sources and our own research that indicates that they have, solid experience.
So I just, on the subject of a new plan, I asked about that at the last meeting as well. And the minutes reflect Arden saying that ESD would also have an engagement plan to work with the committee from this permitted developer. She noted that this plan would not be fully complete or totally signed off on, but ESD would have a permitted developer package with the qualifications and all the things that ESD would need to review, an engagement plan for engaging with stakeholders, and the contours of what the developer's requests would be that ESD would then engage. So have you received that outline of what the contours of their requests will be?
The contours of their requests.
Yes.
No, we are talking with them about, they have talked with us about, folks they want to engage with, stakeholders they want to engage with. The Cirrus talks a lot about, they have the unions backing them. I think you've actually met with them, Gib, directly.
Mm-hmm.
So you know all this.
Yep.
So we have been told that they have made statements that once we go through an engagement process, that's the whole point. They want to see what is viable in terms of a rethinking of the site and what they'd like to see there. But we, again, are made it very clear that that they're stepping into these documents and we have to do an engagement process. And what we've done and what we've talked with this board about several times, and now we're actually at the point to really meaningfully discuss it, is have an engagement process, have CARB strategies here to talk about what that process looks like and get your feedback on how to best go about that.
Okay, but I want to just raise a concern here. The purpose of having what's referred to as the contours of what the developer's requests would be, I think is to, my assumption when that comment was made was that ESD would use that to kind of do a sniff test on whether this was going to work. If the developer was looking for stuff that you thought was reasonable, thought could be financed, if it hung together well enough to make it worth, again, as was mentioned in the last meeting, holding off on collecting the liquidated damages due for affordable housing. So what we're hearing now is no, we don't have that, and we're going to figure that out during community engagement. And my concern here is that we're going to get drawn into a long process of understanding if all of this, of where we end up is really feasible or not. I mean, in theory, I'm for community engagement, but there has to be some financial underpinning for us to give it validity. And that, I assumed, was what Arden meant by contours of what the developer's requests would be. So without that, are we at all concerned that we may be getting into, we may be going down a path here and pretty soon we're kind of all in on this. And then we find out that what emerges from that is not economical or feasible.
And we have retained all our rights under the documents that should we wind up there, which we hope we do not. We intend to kick all of those tires. We intend to make sure that what's put forward is financially viable. We didn't want to get ahead of that.
Right.
We wanted to be deferential to the stakeholders, to the community on this, and not get too far ahead in negotiating with this developer on that ahead of hearing how the community would respond to what we're putting forward.
I think the way you put it was the right way. I think it made sense, at that last meeting. The sense I get is that, look, does it look like we're close enough that we should go forward on this? So I guess I would put it back to you. What have you seen so far that satisfies you that you think you're close enough?
Close enough on what?
Close enough with the outlines of the project to make it look like there's a good chance we'll be able to arrive at a new project that is economical, that meets the objectives that have been outlined in the in the project to date.
We wanted to do that, and that part of the process is in conjunction with the community, everybody, in responding to the contours of the plan that are put forward.
I think,
And what is the developer's role going to be in this engagement process? Because it sounded a minute ago like there might be some sort of two-track thing where they're doing their own engagement.
No. I mean,
They're doing their own. They have their own relationships.
yeah.
They're doing their own
Yes.
conversations with stakeholders.
Right. But in terms of a public process, which is the meat of what we're talking about here, that's something that they will be, providing input on, helping give us materials that we need.
They'll be
Right?
Attending to hear.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be attending those meetings.
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
I think it would be appropriate, frankly, even if we haven't begun the public meetings yet, for them, assuming that to come here to our next meeting, in some combination, given their hydra-headed composition, to have representatives at our next meeting. And I'm sorry, Ron, I'm going to recognize Ron because
I agree with what Gib has said. I really believe there has to be a financial basis to this. But I also believe there has to be a qualitative basis.
Sure.
And I want to understand what qualitative criteria are going to be brought to evaluate the plan in addition to the financial. Who's going to benefit? What kind of fit? What are the family sizes? Is it truly affordable to those who are presently in need of housing in New York or whatever? I think the qualitative aspects seem even to be missing as I glance at the proposal before us. We haven't even heard it.
Sure, that's the exact feedback we want.
It's really important.
If you feel there are elements missing, that's
That's
exactly.
what we're here for. That's why they're here today to.
table that really moment.
What stress.
Yeah, underline that.
Need a financial and qualitative analysis. Housing in New York City has been driven just by numbers, and that we're getting lousy housing that doesn't meet the needs of our city.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Kip.
So again, going back to our minutes from the last meeting, there was a comment by Joel where he assured the board that it would be ESD's intention to establish near-term milestones related to the permitted developer review. Now, I want to point out that when I got the call about the May 29 meeting being canceled, the deadline for pulling this together that I was given at that point was June 30. Later, in a different conversation, the deadline became August 1. And now the deadline is someday in September. So what is our milestone? I mean, what is our date for getting the foreclosure completed, getting the permitted developer review by ESD, by MTA done? How long are we giving that?
I mean, we're doing it as quickly as possible while being responsible about reviewing them. I understand the concern. I will say everything is moving exponentially faster than it was prior to the issuance of the letter saying you have these upcoming deadlines. And it did bring them to the table to come and present us an alternative development team. I mean, it did demonstrate progress and solicit progress on the plan that we.
And they
Hopefully.
added site 5 into the mix, which has added time to our review.
Right.
Well, would it make sense to say September 30th as the deadline to complete the process?
We want to complete it as soon as possible. But we need to make sure that we are getting materials, we're reviewing them, we need time to do that. On the platform side too, we have the MTA in their own review. This is obviously, as you can imagine, we're getting a lot of information and we want to make sure we're doing it correctly. So I think it's our, again, target and intention to do this by the end of September. That's
I guess
certainty I could say at this point.
you talked about a letter that set deadlines, and we're now changing one of those deadlines. Shouldn't there be a concrete date that substitutes for the earlier deadline?
We appreciate that, but I think from our perspective, we want to get this right with all the parties rather than kind of make a deadline that will then have to, potentially have to come and tweak again. So our target is September.
Okay, so in advance of that target, we know we're not doing anything to try to collect the liquidated damages that are owed for missing the affordable housing deadline. I think there's a question as to whether we're accruing those right now with the option to collect them in the future, or if we're actually deferring accruing them. Could we just be clear on that point?
We said we would postpone.
Postpone what?
Postpone implementing liquidated.
But that doesn't
Saying to not accrue.
All right.
And what's that?
Not accruing. They are not accruing.
They're not accruing. So
Well, that's a.
I think
It seems to me that's a pretty substantial substantive difference, and amounts in some ways to amendment of the earlier settlement, doesn't it?
ESD, I mean, this is
it's
a
never
question. But I mean, ESD believes that under the documents, we have the technical and legal right to implement certain delays to asking for the liquidated damages. Now, I know people don't agree with that, but that's
A delay in asking it, but I mean, you can
the language
something.
the language in the settlement agreement says subject to delays, which could be the delays that ESD believes are warranted to allow this process to play out. Also factoring in the claims that the developer has made, which we don't agree with, but we acknowledge are out there.
I'd like to study that agreement at some point. Yeah, I don't, I'm not in a position to comment.
Yeah, I mean, here's what it says. ESD will require that all affordable housing units embodied in existing agreements be built by 2025, 10 years earlier than currently required. Project site affordable housing units, i.e. 2,250 affordable housing units, will be required to have a temporary certificate of occupancy by May 2025, subject to extensions set forth in the development agreement and the general project plan. To the extent this requirement is not met, FCRC and/or the project sponsors will pay liquidated damages of $2,000 per month for every affordable housing unit that does not have a TCO or C of O. So those words are will pay. Now,
But the developer is a party to that. There's that subject clause. Subject
Okay.
clause that
So
requires reference to other documents, and we don't really have the ability at this meeting to go into all that language.
But which extensions in the development agreement apply in this case? Unavoidable delay?
When we we have said that we are giving this process, this new permitted developer process, a chance to play out. And that we are postponing the implementation of the liquidated damages subject to them meeting interim milestones. We have said in this meeting and in other meetings with you, Gib, that the developer has made numerous claims for unavoidable delay over the years, which we don't agree with, but present legal complications and risks. So in light of all the above, that this is the decision we've taken for the time being.
But you don't have the opportunity to say you dispute their claims for unavoidable delay and then use those to claim extensions that allow you to abrogate your agreement. I'm sorry.
We can have a conversation about what's in the development agreement and the leases specifically as to this issue, but we don't have them, let's not have that conversation.
Yeah, we're not gonna have that, we're not gonna have that conversation
Okay.
now, but it is one that we should have, and
But I did not,
possibly an executive session that relates to matters that might eventually be in litigation.
I want to say that I did not understand that the damages were not being accrued. I don't see any rational argument for that. I understand, you may not collect them at this point, but what is the rationale for not accruing them? The deadline was not met.
This goes back to the legal document. So
But-
if we want to do this in executive session, we can go
Okay.
through the legal rationale.
In advance of that, I would like to move that this board recommend ESD present a notice of damages due to the developer of record, current as of August 1st.
Sorry, can you explain?
Yes, I would like us to direct ESD to present
The last part.
a claim of damages due that is, that is not a claim, but a notice of damages due that is current as of August 1st.
Meaning that
What they owe now.
what they owe now,
Yes.
beginning August 1st
No.
or
No.
through August
Beginning
1st?
on the date those damages applied, which is June 1. They owe 3 months right now, and it's a little over, it's 5 million too, I think. Yeah.
Would like to say.
Okay, before we vote on it, is it conditioned on, you want them to issue it now, or do you want it to be conditioned on not meeting whatever is the next deadline?
No, I'm asking this board to make a recommendation contrary to what we've just heard, that these damages are going to be, that these damages are going, the accrual is going to be deferred to some indeterminate date in the future. I mean, we have no schedule for that. We've heard multiple schedules and they've been deferred. And now we're in sometime in September, but that might not work either. There's no date here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we require that now, that would give Elcor and Cyrus an ability to negotiate with Greenland, because Greenland is the one who has not met the obligation. And if there is any cost that will be incurred by it, it means Greenland will get less. And not putting that demand now means they're going to walk away with more money and from the deal. The economics are that the seller is in this case Greenland.
And it's a bailout.
And it's a bailout for them, and we should not reward them for what they have not met.
Well, we have a motion, it's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion from any members of the board on that? Okay. All those in favor? I'm going to abstain. Okay, the motion is carried. So where the motion is that to make we are recommending to ESD that they issue a notice to whoever's currently obligated to pay the penalties. August 1st, running from the failure to meet the deadline, which I guess was the end of May. So it's 3 months or 2 months of penalties. Right?
I'd
Three?
also like to make sure
Three.
that this doesn't somehow reach an administrative delay.
Recommendations, I think, are
Of course.
to the ES, to the board of ESD. To ESD as an agency, but they're also, I think, to the ESD board. When is the next board meeting?
There's no board meeting there's an action that has to be taken. Like there's no Atlantic Yards action that has to go to the ESD board in the near future.
Well, I guess,
What is the near future?
I guess this motion,
We
this
wouldn't be
motion is,
breaking- we
okay,
wouldn't
well,
be-
I guess it's first a recommendation to ESD staff, and how soon can we have a response on that?
Let's figure out what the right forum is on how to respond. These are issues of relate to litigation and complicated legal issues. So let's figure out the right way to.
Let me also say,
Sure.
I propose this also considering what we're about to discuss next, which is community engagement. I think we have a real credibility problem with community engagement at this point. And I think that by showing we're going to perform on the last set of commitments we made to the community, we are in a better position to be coming to them again, talking about new commitments for the future. If we don't have that, I just think it's going to be awfully fraught.
I don't know that we would be in a community engagement process for many years were this route not taken.
But again, you have to look at this from the community's point of view.
Absolutely.
This was not a small thing. It's the negotiation of the affordable housing acceleration. It was not a small thing. And the community acted with ESD in good faith, and ESD is not performing, quite frankly. And to go in front of a community again and say, we have a new project to talk to you about with new commitments and, other things that can happen in the future, I just don't think it's going to work.
The alternate path might mean that we can't move forward with anything, right? For even in the related deal that was being proposed, last year, there were real complications about how to deal with the fact that we have legal documents and legal documents that go through 2035 that give the developer rights as well under it. So we could wind up really mired in a major stall here while things are litigated or things are debated. And our goal here is not to betray any trust. The goal here is to put forward something that can turn, the rail yards into housing, can turn a closed into housing, and can deliver benefits for the community. That's our sole goal here. And the thought of being stuck, trying to navigate our way out of it, of legal documents that are pretty complicated to navigate, that was our sole intent.
The weakness in that argument is that this money can go directly to creating affordable housing.
If you got
If you got
the
I guarantee.
On the other hand, you may not get it at all. The deal that will go ahead here will not in any way be hindered by that because Greenland would get less money.
No.
On the other hand, if they go ahead and negate this whole situation, what stops that from just providing us with what is luxury housing on that site?
I mean, affordability, the percentage of affordability, the levels of AMI, are all the things that we want that this board has expressed frustration with in the earlier phases of this project that we actually honestly really want to re-engage with the community on.
But it's just I'm sorry, but it's going to be perceived as illusory. if we don't show that we're doing something to actually honor the commitments that were made previously. And I have to say, this board was formed to oversee the public commitments of the project. And this is a key public commitment. And so I don't know that this, I think the vote sort of speaks for itself. I don't think we have a choice other than to insist that you go forward and honor those commitments. And if you do, I think we can, and I'm not, look, I'm not even saying that you can't, I think we need to honor the commitments we've made to be able to make new commitments to the public. If we're not doing that, the public's going to look at as a member of the public, I'm going to look at this new plan and say, well, I was promised a bunch of other things. Those things didn't happen because of other exigencies. And the people I look to hold the developers accountable did not do so. And I don't have anything to say about why it won't happen again in the future. I don't know if we've thought about that at all as a part of community engagement.
We absolutely have.
But we are really going to be challenged on that.
We would be hard pressed to speak to them at all if we were mired in litigation. Never mind being hard pressed to answer that question in a robust public. If we were to issue the liquidated damages.
But do you have an agreement that says you may do so? And they have
the unavoidable delays. They have made unavoidable delay claims.
We've already said this.
Yes, this is why they have expressed that there's unavoidable delays that prevented them from meeting the affordable housing deadline. They have more or less expressed that should we seek the collection, there would be litigation.
Okay, but
that would of course that would stall the project.
How does Greenland benefit from a delay? How does Greenland benefit from a delay? They need to be bailed out. And what you're doing is you're bailing them out twice.
You're
not requiring this because if you
for
require this, the value of the property goes down, their interest goes down.
And then you don't get a developer.
But it's them, it's not their other
deferring collection and deferring rule are two very different things. And I think I think it's important to kind of sum up the discussion we've been having here is to make sure that people understand that we're really kind of choosing between scenarios here. We have and I think that's what the staff has been trying to say is that we can choose one path that will move this has the potential to move this project forward. Choose another path that may satisfy, the commitments, but that will essentially stall the project from forward. It's basically or not. We have to. Well, I guess I'd like to hear is there any scenario staff thinks where we could be proceeding on both tracks?
Probably not.
Collecting damages from one of the members of this new joint venture while having the others move forward.
There's only one person at risk right now. That's Greenland.
But
that's what I'm saying.
And they're the ones that control Site 5, like under the documents.
But they need to sell.
Site 5 is important.
But they need to sell it.
They have Site 5.
Sorry, do you have
There's a few things that kind of that just stand out to me from the standpoint. One question that I'm going to ask is kind of just level setting for everything else. Affordability, or what is currently an affordable unit on any of these sites from B4, 15, 14, what is the current AMI? Like, what is the current?
What's been built already?
Or what's been built already? What is the current AMI level, right? Or I'm not even say current AMI level, but
Get that table back to you that we presented, I think, early last year. It's consistent with it's consistent with the various programs.
I believe the lowest is maybe there's a few at 30%, but up to 130% of AMI.
Yes.
so then when we break that down as far as necessarily saying actual pay for each individual, we're saying that's 2,100 for an affordable unit, right? Again, not knowing what that's.
We've heard
going into the community.
We've heard that specs critics. We've totally heard everybody on that criticism, and it's one of the important things we want to talk about in the next phase.
But
No, so I get that part, and that's the only reason why I'm asking, because while we're talking about trying to recuperate this funding, the community is going to come back and say, we can't afford that, right? Off back,
Okay.
off out of, before we even say anything, right? And there's no other funding that's going into this project currently, necessary for the purpose of necessarily trying to get us to that affordable piece. Now, if we're saying that, again, to Ron's point, if Greenland is saying that we're going to hold on to it because of the simple fact that, hey, we want to get more bang for our buck, right? In that sense, really paraphrasing it from that standpoint, they're not going to want to sell it, or whichever developer you bring on, Elmcore related, whomever it is, they're going to pretty much, they're only looking at it from the standpoint of how do we make our money back, right? So when we're talking about the community engagement portion of it, how are we going to actually address what the community wants when there's not going to be any new funding that's going to be attached to the project?
Well, we don't know what the next phase of the project looks like.
One reason why I say I can guarantee you is because the other reason too, we brought in a strategies group when we mentioned in our minutes last time that Community Board 8 did an economic development study. We also did one with Bridge Street Development, which they were a part of, and also let you know that Community Board 8 had a difficult time with that same group too as well, that you're bringing back in to talk to the same people that you're asking what do they want in the community that already have a distrust of said group. Hence why the reprehension of more or so kind of understanding of the community is going to ask for a lot, because currently right now we even have our meetings that's on site, but anytime you go into those meetings, there's no Wi-Fi, right? There's no cellular network for you to be able to make a call X, Y, or Z. So they may ask for a space that is more, hey, can you do something that's more economically friendly?
And we want to hear all of this.
But my question becomes necessarily who's going to pay for it?
That I can't answer yet. We need to hear what the it is. And this will be part of the overall financial feasibility analysis.
And I will say that one of the best parts of having Site 5 be brought into the fold and not be only speaking about the platform site is that it is much more solvent and it helps the project overall.
I agree.
All right, so you have the motion of
Yep.
board.
We'll
I think
figure out the
can we
appropriate way to
target early September to have perhaps it probably would need to be an executive session meeting to hear your response on that. I think we'll just have to after later.
We'll get back to you on the exact timing, but yes, we will figure out the best way to respond to it.
Okay. Where were we in the?
In the agenda, we are at the public engagement process planning portion.
Let's move to that.
And I'll be handing it over to my colleague, David Viana, AVP for Community Relations. I want to pull the, thank you.
Everybody, David Viana, Assistant Vice President for Community Relations, here to talk to you a little bit about the public engagement process planning portion. So as a reminder, following the approval of the permitted developer, any changes to the project's plan that the permitted developer may seek will first require the completion of the robust community engagement process. To be clear, no changes to the project plan have been approved at this time, nor will they be approved prior to the community engagement process that we're about to undertake taking place. As we've committed to the AYCDC directors previously, before any of the community engagement starts, we would bring the engagement consultant to you all to begin a discussion about the overall process and discuss the consultant's scope of work. So some of those goals for this engagement process are to conduct public engagement throughout the fall of this year, with completion targeted for the end of the year. The engagement process will incorporate numerous topics and will be inclusive of a wide range of stakeholders. And the community input that we receive from this process will be compiled into a public report that will then inform a redevelopment plan for the platform sites and for Site 5. This plan will be the input of a modified general project plan, MGPP, and a supplemental EIS, SEIS, which will have its own public process for that. So that being said, ESD is pleased to introduce the directors to CARB Strategies behind us. They are an urban planning and strategy consulting firm based in New York City as the consultant that ESD has hired for the community engagement process. CARP Strategies is a certified WBE Women Business Enterprise, DBE Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and SBE Small Business Enterprise. Over the next few weeks, CARP's directive is to discuss, plan, and get feedback on what the engagement process will look like as we work on this next phase of the Atlantic Yards project. The CARP Strategies project team is being led by Annie White, located next to me here. She is a principal at CARP, and I'll be turning it over to Annie now to introduce her colleagues and to provide a brief presentation on the background and experience as a firm, the tasks that they'll be conducting, and the overall project timeline. Great to hearing your feedback.
Want to track a presentation?
Okay.
Welcome, Ms. White.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me and my colleagues here today. As I noted, my name's Annie White. I'm a principal at CARP Strategies. And if you'd like to go to the next slide, we're going to spend a little bit of time today just introducing ourselves, who we are, the work that we do, and then spend the majority of the time talking through what we anticipate from the stakeholder engagement process and really critically hearing some of the initial thoughts and ideas that you all have as we firm up what that engagement is going to look like here. So to start a little bit about us, we are like we mentioned, a women-owned urban planning and consulting firm. We're based in Manhattan. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in New York. We work really with public and private sector clients across New York and across the Northeast on projects, and we really value engagement processes that build, more inclusive, equitable economies and cities. Many of us live around the site in Brooklyn, and so we're deeply familiar with the kind of, I'll say we're familiar with the project. We're learning a lot more as we continue to speak to our colleagues and listen into meetings like this, and we understand that we're not coming in, we're coming in with a site with a lot of long history, and we're here to learn more from you and to build on that as we go forward. We work across a lot of different sectors. So we certainly work in housing and, real estate development, but we also do, climate and clean energy. We do economic development, community and workforce development. And I raise this just to note that we're not just a community engagement firm. We're able to kind of see the bigger picture of planning projects, and we can communicate, we can take the planning and real estate jargon and communicate that with residents and individuals. We also do a lot as far as like retail tenanting and workforce development and items that also might be important to the community here. Next slide, please. But really, community engagement and stakeholder engagement is at the core of what we do. It often is the backbone for many of our projects. We've done this work across the 5 boroughs of New York City, including Brooklyn. And although every site and situation requires a little bit of a different approach, we really, keep some of our like core values and understanding of community needs at the heart of what we do. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking through some of our past projects just to give you a sense of how we worked and what some of the outcomes have been, understanding that this project might look a little bit different than some of these.
Thanks, that'll be helpful.
So one of our ongoing projects that actually, and I apologize, I jumped right in and I didn't introduce my colleagues. I'm also joined by Director Pankaj and Project Manager Kyle Bayer, who are here, who are going to be working on this project with me as well. And we have more team members that will support because we need, as all hands on deck for some of the larger events. So apologies. Both Kyle and I are working on a project with New York City EDC right now on the Staten Island St. George waterfront. If you're familiar with this project, this has also been a site that has kind of many years of planning, and due to changing conditions and economic conditions, the city is in a period right now where they're rethinking some of the development strategy along this north shore of Staten Island. They are looking to bring in new housing and retail and community assets that are going to better serve Staten Island going forward. And so CARP Strategies was brought in to do some large workshops and some focus groups to get feedback on the what the community would like to see. There's a lot of frustration as well over just how long some of the time span has been here. And I think we've been very successful in both kind of educating people that are attending on what the current status is, and then collecting ideas and specifically engaging youth populations that's a priority for the council member here. This is another project that we did in the South Bronx along the East 49th Street corridor. This one is a little bit different because we were also doing more of a real estate market analysis to understand kind of retail needs here. But I think I wanted to raise this one because there was a lot of kind of intersecting needs of changing retail, but also public realm and quality of life concerns. And we worked directly with kind of the business community there to understand how to create a more inclusive economy along this corridor through this study. Thank you. Back to Brooklyn now for a project we did with the Brownsville Public Library. This was a really engaged community because of this important asset and the ability to really rethink how this community was interacting with the public library. And we did some really more hands-on workshop-y type of, using the kind of charrette style workshop where people are using tools and drawings to rethink how the space of the public library would work. And I think through those more interactive exercises, it got the community more engaged, and we were able to kind of span generations to get them involved in rethinking how they'd like to use the library. This project we wanted to show something very large scale. We work on a lot of the major infrastructure and resiliency projects across New York. This one specifically was with the Two Bridges community. And just to note that we, do this work where we're working with the community that is undergoing a major infrastructure project that's really going to upend their life for a period of time, and making sure that we're, getting their feedback and making that meaningful for the, implementation of the project. So, leading up to, during, and after construction of this major project, their voices are heard, and they're, seeing the improvements that they want to see in their community. And just quickly touching on this, I know we heard something about this organization in the conversation prior. Bridge Street was one of our clients, and just to note, we pulled this in to show that we've worked in the central Brooklyn area before, but for Bridge Street, we were specifically looking at senior housing in central Brooklyn, and they're looking to develop a program to invest in HUD 202 specific housing that is seeing funding shortages and financial challenges, and investing in HUD 202 properties. So we were helping them develop a program to invest in those properties across Brooklyn. And like I said, throughout all of this, we approach each project with, a different lens and understanding of specific needs. But we really just want to reiterate that we don't see engagement as just a box to check. We want to make sure that we are, really identifying where there is room for feedback to shape a project. And we are going to be, clearly documenting and synthesizing that feedback and sharing it with ESD and with the development team. We want to, really engage more people than just those typical, the people that are always showing up at community board meetings, to reach as broad of the audience as possible. And we know that we're, going to have to build a lot of trust and transparency through this process, and we're really committed to doing so in the engagement. So oftentimes when Corp Strategies works with a client, we put together a proposal and we outline exactly what activities and materials are going to need, and it's all set in a plan even before we start the project. That's actually not how we're approaching this. We know that we want to get feedback and how we shape the engagement and what activities are going to work best for this audience and are going to, resonate the most for residents. So this is where we're coming to you at this stage. If you'd like to go to the next slide, please, just to note that of kind of where we are. So we are still we just kicked off in July. We are still in what we're calling the engagement planning process. So we're still developing what that outreach plan is going to look like and synthesizing feedback from ESD and you all and other stakeholders. And then we're preparing to kickstart the public engagement in whatever form that takes, starting in September, completing through the end of the year. So these are a few types of activities that we think could work here. And again, we want to take kind of a multi-layered approach so that, yes, we're having the large public workshops where we're able to gather people and share ideas and hear feedback in the largest forum possible. But we also know that people feel comfortable sharing feedback in different ways. And we want to also meet people where they are. So a few ways that we could do this are, community tabling of going to events where people are already going, it's already happening, and we're going there and informing them about, hey, you might be familiar with this project, we're restarting an engagement process. We can then invite them to share feedback through multiple forums. Focus groups are ways to get really deep into the content, and we can, work those around like types of stakeholders or groups that, again, might have a harder time engaging in a public forum, such as the public workshop. And then also an idea is to do a survey, which is kind of the most open that can be shared across, many different platforms, community board listservs, that type of thing, to get that's not where you're going to get maybe the most like deep conversation and trust building, but it is a forum to share feedback. So just throwing a few of these out there as options, but we're certainly open to discussing others. So happy, I just talked for a while, happy to answer any questions about us, the work that we do, but also, wanted to leave us for some questions for discussion for today, thinking about the engagement and thinking about what, types of public workshop formats do you think would be beneficial here, topics that you would like to see addressed and methods, and really, thinking about, what approach, knowing what you know about how the community's feeling is going to give us the most beneficial and valuable feedback for shaping the project. Thanks all.
Anybody have any questions? Yep.
Sorry, I mentioned the St. George Waterfront project. There's a reset of a stalled effort. In this situation, I mean, there's a lot of cynicism about, quite frankly, about where this project is in the fraught history it's had, and especially the at times very fraught relationship it's had with the community. And going into this, we may be presenting the idea that we want to talk about the future of this project at a time that when we've not held it accountable to its past commitments. So how would you suggest we approach something like that? I think it's to me, it seems very, very challenging.
Yeah. I think the first thing, and, ESD, please feel free to weigh in after me. The first thing is just being honest about the frustrations that people are feeling and taking accountability for, the timeline and the frustrations where we feel that we can. I would say for the St. George Waterfront, as an example, we had many of the same concerns, and we basically, worked with EDC to start the first presentation we are kicking off saying, listen, like, we understand that we told you that this was going to look like one thing and now it's not. And there's some things that they can take accountability for as an agency, but also the changing nature of the retail landscape has impacted the Empire stores, and tourism has changed like through COVID. And so I think just being very, very, honest and not trying to sugarcoat everything helps build that level of trust. And then I think it's just being as transparent and thoughtful within the process that we're in now. And if they can see, oh, I'm seeing that the feedback that I gave at this first session is then being repeated and being meaningfully incorporated when we meet with them again at a follow-up session, they start to feel a little bit more comfortable with the process. But I agree with you. It's a challenge, but it's something that we work with a lot in our work.
What's going to make it a little bit more difficult is that it's going to be an election season that you're doing that. And so a lot of people's attention is going to be diverted to other issues that in some way are very much related to this. At the same time, there is a very large debate looming in Brooklyn around the Brooklyn terminal market, which raises the credibility issue of EDC because of the way it's being used and the way it's being manipulated, and has really got engaged and created both political controversies among politicians as well as between faith groups. Right. So you're entering this in a very difficult period of time. And having done some of the work that you're doing now, it's a very treacherous period to be undertaking this. Having said all of that, you obviously have the capability of doing it. I'm not questioning that at all. But one of the things I would like to see appear more in this are and I mentioned it earlier, are the qualitative standards. How do we really start looking at to what extent does this development build better communities and better housing, particularly for the populations that have been denied access to housing? Creating 75% luxury housing is a luxury housing program. It's not a 25% low moderate income housing program. And the skewing of the rents has led to the point that what we call affordable is not affordable to the average person that lived in the community board surrounding it. So I think there's got to be some evaluation of that. There has to be a way of looking at the racial equity issues. New York City passed a racial equity law requiring it. There's certain standards that have to be met. The state doesn't have to go through that, but it would be good to mimic that standard that's being required now by ULA. And so I think to some extent you're going to have to, look at how you tease that into this document. And the other issue that you have to what extent will local community boards, there's some very sophisticated community boards in this area. How will they be engaged in this? And how will the borough president's office be engaged? Particularly the borough president's issues has developed their own housing plan. And how does this fit into that? And so it's a very difficult landscape. But the questions, I think, are very complex and they should be taken a look at. And those would be my recommendation.
And luckily, we also have a member of the BP Reynosa's team here as well. So he heard that as well, that we'll be bringing them in.
Drew, you had a comment.
So I guess my question was so kind of piggybacks a little bit off of Ron's piece as far as necessarily engagement of better housing, right? And granted necessarily understanding already, having a good understanding in terms of necessarily what the community is going to ask for, and that is necessarily looking at affordability, right? But also from the perspective of the fact that you, like Ron just mentioned, you're dealing with some very significant community boards or necessarily folks that have played a significant role with shaping New York City from that standpoint. And the question becomes, can we change the conversation from affordable to supportive? Being as though ESD already has a developer there, what does that do to the conversation, right? What challenges that present, if anything, from that perspective right now when we look at the landscape of this project in itself?
I can tell you right off the bat, we're bringing in a developer whose focus is on workforce development.
Workforce housing.
So
but that's the other challenge too, especially within the neighborhoods or surrounding neighborhoods when we're talking about it or looking at this as a workforce opportunity or a chance for that perspective. You have to look at necessarily from when this project started. We coined that as a workforce opportunity, and most of those small businesses that were along Flatbush Avenue, Flatbush Extension, they didn't have a spot in the community or in the neighborhood from that standpoint. So again, trying to figure out what will that happen again, right? No one knows, right? And then at the same time, there was also a quasi CBA that was necessarily put together from that standpoint. They're going to want to come in because now they feel like this may be a new opportunity because you have new community engagement. I'm saying these things for the standpoint of, again, asking ESD, there has to be an opportunity to open up that checkbook, right? Or figure out necessarily if there are other funds going to be towards this or how much of the plan can actually change because you already have a developer or necessarily we already technically have a developer or someone that you have in mind. That's going to change necessarily complexity, especially if those developers are hearing the community wants more than we're willing to offer.
I understand what you're saying. I think there's an element of chicken and the egg that we confront with a lot of our planning processes where the community wants to know within which parameters are we talking about in terms of finances and other constraints, but we want to hear what the community would want for the site as is possible. So I think in this case, we all know there are constraints to the project. There are astronomical costs, et cetera, associated with pieces of the platform. But we do want to hear from the community, what are the priorities so that they can do our best to work with the development team, with the community board, with yourselves, with the electeds, and with the community as a whole, to try our best to rate higher those which we heard more from, or those which seem to be the, most desperate needs at the moment.
And my last point, again, as I mentioned before, within these same communities and community boards, there was an economic development study that was done, and also a plan that was put together, just pretty much showing viability, small businesses, and everything from that extent. And I know that was pretty extensive, done from that standpoint. So just trying to figure out whether or not that was also being taken into consideration, especially when we talk about it from a workforce standpoint, but then just community opportunities, especially being as though this platform sites are directly across the street from nature development.
We hear you, but not recreating the wheel and relying on the expert advice of the community board.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what's the next step for this? I mean, are you hoping to use this meeting or?
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're kind of coming to it a little, fresh here. We're
Sure. As long as
makes sense to schedule another meeting to
I'll
into these issues.
We can figure out the best way to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to understand more clearly what's the role of this board in this planning.
Get your advice, your thoughts,
Preferences around cadence and type of engagement.
I mean, a couple of years ago, when the Brooklyn Speaks folks thought this was going to move faster than it did at that point, we did a bunch of online charrettes. This was during COVID. That are still online. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that material, but we kind of broke it down into housing, into urban design and street design, into transportation and accountability. And I think those are all subjects people are interested in. I think how you're kind of trying to program the sessions and what kinds of input you're looking for are important. I think at this stage, I think the accountability piece is going to be very important. That's a place where I think we're going to be confronted with the question, what's different this time? What I would say is I don't know to what extent it's possible to explain this to people, but a large project like this is kind of like a triangle. One leg of the triangle is developer entitlements. Another one is subsidy, and the third one is public goods. And you can control maybe two sides of that triangle, but the other one, you can pick which ones you're trying to control. And if there aren't many subsidies out there today, to Drew's point, the developer who's seeking additional entitlements is going to promise significant public goods in order to justify the entitlements. And the axis of time then comes in to play. How long does the public have to wait for these things that have been promised for the entitlements? Atlantic Yards is a project that did a giant affordable housing outreach session in 2005. Hundreds of people came. How many still live in Brooklyn? It's Ron does. But this is what I mean by accountability. There has to be a mechanism that the public can rely on to make sure that the goods that are promised in exchange for gives on stuff like entitlements really happen. I don't know if there's opportunity for other subsidy now, but that politically, that's also quite difficult in a situation like this, given where we've come from. The fact we've got a developer who is probably politically, our elected officials don't want to see us getting bailed out. So I think if we can orient folks to where we are right now, I also, it's not typically where you get at an outreach session, but I think this project has kind of been in the tube for a long time, and it would be helpful for people to understand what the various dimensions and dependencies are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the engagement activities, which it looks like that you've covered the main things that we do. But I'm thinking about the community and where many of us may be now in terms of having disengaged, being angry, being stressed and frustrated. And too often, those are not the people that come out to community activities. And I implore you to, as you think about this and become creative, because you mentioned thinking outside the box, how do we get those people to come out so you can hear from them? Because it is really a challenge. The folks who come to the community board are not often the voices that we need to hear, the people who can come out. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention to kind of think about that as we think about engagement activities. Particularly with our seniors, those who are handicapped, seniors don't do the online stuff. They have mobility issues, so they can't get out like other people.
Time of day, location, it all.
Yes.
One immediate, I think that's really critical, and we welcome ideas on how to maybe reach out to those groups. One immediate idea is, finding if there's an organization or a place that they do have trust in, that we are able to go through them to reach out to them. And so whether it's a faith-based organization or a community group or a senior center or things like that, where we can first meet with leadership of whatever that group that is, and then go through them and able to, get the word out that way if they've kind of disengaged from the whole process.
I'd like to hear a little more about what your thoughts on the context that you're coming into with this project, where what you're dealing with is a partially completed project. I mean, there was an overall project and a sizable portion of it has been completed. Some portion of the open space has been delivered. Some, the majority, but not all, obviously, of the affordable housing has been delivered. How does that all play into, what are people going to be discussing? Are they going to be discussing the whole, or are we going to be engaging on just these discrete portions of the project, namely the two platform blocks, and then Site 5, which is several blocks away and is, by the way, in an entirely different community board. I just want to hear a little more your thoughts on how that all plays into your plan for this process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, it's a unique condition in which we're entering in this engagement. And we certainly anticipate that we are going to have people attending that are now residents in the new properties, along with, existing neighborhood residents. And I think that, really to use our time wisely, we need to focus feedback on the project moving forward. But we also understand that if you're a resident of the property now and you have an issue, that's also a forum that you want to use to share what you think of the project overall. And so I think it's about, creating a forum where people can get answers for maybe what they have questions about or share what their concerns are. That also might be lesson learned for the future development, but trying to steer the conversation more towards the sites at hand, just so that we can, get the meaningful feedback we need for this project. But maybe it's again, that can we connect them with the right path where they can direct questions or concerns that they have about their, the sites that have been built. So that would be my initial thought, but.
And is the premise of the sort of opening premise of these meetings going to be there is an existing plan for these sites. There's 6 buildings on the platform sites, and we don't know how many built.
I think
let's leave Site 5 to the side. Let's just, for the moment, because it's a whole issue of transferring rights and how many buildings that allows for, et cetera.
I think this is
Site 5.
This is where the contours of the plan come in, right? The developer has ideas that we have not, again, blessed or said they should be assuming or should be, right?
But they have ideas.
They have ideas that we would want them to put forward so that we can get feedback.
So the question is, are we going to have them put those ideas forward at the beginning?
That's a good question.
Or at or in the middle or the end.
Well, I don't like to assume that people attend multiple engagement events. You know, it's remarkable for people to make the time in their lives to come to one.
Yes.
But that is a good question.
There will be stalwarts who will
Absolutely.
the entire process through.
We welcome
But
we
yes,
welcome that.
but,
I guess it's
sort of there's a
You know,
timing. thing,
As we talk about, right, this project is not a blank slate. We have documents, we have a developer, we have, right?
There's a lot of hair.
Point, right? That, so I don't know that, you know, I think you would have to start with something that the developers.
So, and that's probably where I want to just be clear in that sense of making sure that the community has that starting point, right? So that there's at least realistic expectations is going into it, right? And then that will kind of at least let you know what the engagement will look like, to be quite honest, because if, again, like I said, if there's not much that can be changed, if the community is yelling, hey, let this be a supportive project instead of an affordable project, and everybody's just like, let's stop there. But hey, we also want a community center. Let's stop you there. Can't even do that. Right? Like, again, being able to understand necessarily what those constraints are from that standpoint within the community.
It is very frustrating to go to these workshops and then nothing that you have said be reflected. So I understand.
And just to underline this did not start in 2005. It started as an urban renewal project in 1962, and then in 65, and then in 1968. And this community has gone through public participatory processes all along those lines. The reality is the neighborhood's revitalized outside of the terminal, outside of the areas of concentration, which for a planner is really upsetting because it means that planners' work doesn't really do anything. The spontaneous redevelopment of neighborhoods has been much greater. But we have to look at this, I think, and learn from some of this stuff that's done. I sent on April 17th, July 14th, copy of an evaluation of how to evaluate housing plans and development. It was done by the Urban Development Corporation. And that guideline really is something that needs to be looked at. It needs to be updated. Obviously, things have changed. The dynamics of places have changed. But there are many lessons to be learned from it. You can get higher density sometimes by low-rise, high-density design than you can by just going 910 feet. And so there may be other options that we have to take a look at. And what we're doing is we're tying ourselves up if we do only live up to the plan that now exists and is modified. There may be ways of radically changing it that should not be ignored. Whenever you do an environmental impact analysis, you're also supposed to do a no action plan. Well, there's a no action plan. There may be a totally revised action plan. I think in order to do this successfully, you're going to have to break some rules.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have some kind of process where some period of time, whether it's
To get us your thoughts.
Get feedback.
yeah, for us to think about this and submit our thoughts. I would hope we could do that with, I guess we need to know what the open meeting law constraints are on that process, but I'd like to have a process where people can submit things, comment amongst each other without our having to call a meeting.
The one suggestion as you enter in and think about that is, there is a finite timeline, or, there's timeline and resources we have to consider. So I think what we're really interested in is how you weigh the large public workshop type meetings or the smaller focus groups and the tabling, what you think is going to be the most beneficial for entering the community in this stage, because we don't want to come in and pretend like we're starting from zero. We are starting with a long history. And so just thinking about some of those trade-offs would be really helpful for us as we start to put it together with ESD.
I just want to come back to something that Arden said a minute ago, which is this idea of the outline of a plan from a developer that starts to sort of put on the table at least what the developer is looking for is something for as something to seed the discussion. If that's what we're going to do, then I think that should be on this timeline someplace.
Should.
When we get that. And
if this timeline is sort of starting now and going into September, but you can't commit to approving the permanent developer by the end of September, I don't know how that works.
Yep, I understand. That's why we're trying to approach this, but.
But even, you know, in the absence of having anything indicative from the developer, I think we may, you know, we'd risk bringing people into a process that's kind of spinning wheels if they, you know, come up and ask for the moon and the developer is,
Sure.
You know, so I you know, Art, you've said a couple of times this idea of an outline of the developer's plan or something like that. And it seems like we need to sort of place that someplace on this timeline. And then after that, look at what kind of the overall structure of our content breakdown is going to be for the stakeholder process. What content, you know, what areas do we want to focus on? We're not just going to have X number of meetings and have people walk in and say, you know, hey, I want a dog run. And the other guy says, no, but I really need an affordable apartment. And, you know, obviously it's
And I want an ice cream.
and then that's not the way it's going to work. So we're going to have some focus there. And I think we need to chunk that out together with seeing what the developer plan is. And at some point on this timeline, you know, after the developer outline, we get to a point where we've identified what the structure of the input we're looking for is. You know, the questions about when do we do it in person or do we do it online, I mean, I think are less important than the question of what are we really looking for. For what it's personally, I think online meetings would be difficult, would be fraught with this. I mean, to the point where, you know, the facilitators would probably find the need to turn off the comments in the chat and stuff like, and just all the things that people dislike. I think that the Atlantic Avenue mixed use plan meetings that Councilmember Hudson sponsored, those were our in-person workshops. I think generally they work pretty well in terms of getting input. So I don't know, I'd be more recommending of that type of an approach. If you do want to do community tabling on Vanderbilt Avenue, I can.
We know what that is.
You got a Saturday?
That would. Yeah, so that's, but I think the idea of workshops with structured activities where people do feedback on particular topics that work well during Game Up.
I think that, yeah.
I have one question for staff and particularly for the contractual arrangements which are went into. To what extent will this, if this process comes up with a set of recommendations, to what extent will it have an impact on the developers? Or is it just an exercise in futility?
So this would result in set of recommendations. The next step would have to be a modification to incorporate those, you know, whatever of those we, you know, all agree can move forward into a modification of the GPP.
What is the parameters of that? Is it going to be a lot or is it going to be a straitjacket?
I think we don't know yet.
I mean, I think you're asking, is there going to be is there a negotiation that the developer is required to have with the agency over the recommendations that come out of this
I think we
process?
have to modify any of the existing documents and still retain all our rights under the documents. We don't have to modify any of it. We would incorporate any of the changes. We don't have to modify any design guidelines. We don't have to modify anything that we haven't negotiated.
Well, it's not. No, my question is, this process produces a set of recommendations, consensus recommendations. Does I think what you're asking is, is the developer required to engage with you on incorporating those into, which may involve changing the sort of
We
plan that is proposal.
We have told them that when they present us the fulsome contours of this plan, to keep going back to that statement I'm now regretting saying, but when we go back to the contours of the plan, we aren't accepting it. We intend to engage in this community engagement process, and we intend for them and us to listen to this and do our best to incorporate as much as we can.
I mean, I think basically ESD is in charge of figuring out how long each leg of the triangle is. The entitlements, public goods, the subsidies. That is what the agency does.
Yeah, I'm just trying to translate that a little more concretely.
The whole thing collapses.
No, they all have to be attached.
No, I was just saying, I'm trying to translate that a little more concretely into this process that we're the next most immediate step in this process.
I mean, I think if you took this timeline out, right, this is the public engagement, but after this, you know, at the end, this comes out to a vision report, and then if you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're going to take that report and try to project it into the context of a new plan for the project that all of the parties will agree to, and that to which they will be held accountable.
Right. And then we go through an MGPP and an EIS and have more engagement and discussion through that process.
Those hearings, et cetera.
Okay. Well, so what should the next step be then?
We will figure out the means.
Forum to collect your feedback on this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say we should try to do that once we have the famous developer outlines and then, you know, this content structure, then we can talk about, maybe talk about those things. Does that make sense?
So
I don't know. I don't think I'm understanding.
Maybe not you're saying wait until we have the contour, like the plan. I think we need to, we want that feedback about the process.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess we can not get the plan, and we can just talk about the content structure of the input we're looking for.
Yeah, it's the.
I think that is the critical part.
The next step is to get our feedback on the process.
Okay.
People can choose to submit.
Can we establish some dates?
Well, I mean, should we look toward having a meeting in September?
Yeah, I mean,
but actually establish it, not negotiate it.
What dates for what?
For our meeting, or when we need to get our feedback to them before that meeting. As individuals, I guess.
I mean, we would love the feedback as early as possible so that we could
don't wait.
Try to do that, but
this board can be on a regular schedule.
That would be.
It would be good.
It's like maybe quarterly.
I mean,
no, I think
last year we're
gonna. We need more than quarterly meetings.
Yes, we're gonna need more than that. Would it be possible for? I mean, I don't know if we can do another meeting in August. That would be great to talk about engagement.
Yeah.
In the next 2 weeks, you mean? In the next 3
we can't.
We need to make sure we get.
I think August.
And I think we're in. Then I think we're in September. Then, so let's. I mean, I'm kind of with Ron. It would be great if we could just schedule it now, so we know.
Well, what we can do is we can agree on a date that we can hold for
if everyone wants to throw out a date in September, we could then formally poll.
And then again, that is subject to the availability of the space. The reserve.
Yeah. We need the website. We need the live stream. But yeah,
I'm good with any date the 12th.
You're aware of.
You know, I am.
Yeah.
I'm away all that week.
But we don't have votes, even if we don't have.
I reserve it for the OGS up in Albany.
Why not?
Our position is can't without a quorum.
When is?
We have a open meetings problem if we get too many, even if we don't have a quorum. I think that only a small number of directors get us into an open meeting
But
requirement.
if it's public open meeting, it doesn't matter. That's legal. It's only a problem if we hold it in closed doors.
Closed doors.
Okay.
Well, it's also a problem if
We discussed.
there couldn't be any kind of
A vote.
vote on minutes or anything else,
Yeah.
obviously.
We don't have to vote on that if we're trying to exchange ideas, but we're allowed to do that.
I think because of the way that this is constituted as a, subsidiary
No,
public
it's not a CAC.
body,
which has more
unfortunately,
Stricter.
we are kind of constricted by having quorum, having a meeting.
You can figure out a way.
We can discuss offline.
So my question, do we also need a quorum for non-voting matters? For the purpose of convening any meeting that we have?
Yeah, our position is we need a quorum to have any kind of public meeting.
No, I would say when you say, that's your position versus what is actually legally warranted, I'm just trying to make sure getting the two of like, this is ASD's practice versus we want to make sure that we have these things and convene this information to the board.
This body was set up not as a PAC or an advisory board. It was set up as a subsidiary of a state agency, a state entity, if you will. So as such, we're constricted by, the open meetings law provisions, and our conclusion is that we can't have a meeting without a quorum.
And we do this with all our subsidiaries.
It's probably better because without a quorum, you wouldn't be able to conduct any business. For instance, we couldn't have had a vote today.
That vote was put up by
The quorum
you,
issue
right,
is of less concern to me than the ability to just have a gathering where ideas are and brainstorming occurs without the need to have the
I
entire
think when you go
public
into the word deliberating, when you're starting to deliberate. And then you're
infrastructure.
sharing ideas.
Yes. That's the concern, is that it's constraining our ability to really have this has been a good, frank sharing of ideas, but I think it's still constrained.
I am assuming that we'll get an email from Debbie with proposed meeting dates and hoping September 12th, only date I can't make it. Any other day?
I'm out that entire week.
But
so I'd like to target, if possible, the week of, it'd be the latter part of the week of the 15th. So somewhere in the 17th, 18th. All right, then can we shoot for the 17th?
17th would work, the 18th.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Because that's before
I don't think
Rosh Hashanah.
Sorry,
I think that'll work for certain staff who are working on the ESD meeting, which will be on the 18th. So could it be? I'm not sure. I need to look.
Week after you have Rosh Hashanah. So
Rosh Hashanah is the following.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
That's well, we would start running into Rosh Hashanah and the other holidays. It could be, maybe
the
25th.
Right.
25th.
Whatever the third day is.
That's the 25th.
I already have a 3:00 schedule. That time frames.
What about the 24th?
That is Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, that is Rosh
Hashanah. That's it.
Yeah, all those.
Oh, yes, that's right.
The following week, you have Monday, Tuesdays should be okay from a Jewish holiday.
Right.
The 29th. That is
I have them all.
So I guess my other question is, when is the first community engagement supposed to start, or where? Because I guess you have it.
Yeah.
See the September, but I don't know what that looks
like already.
You're right. And this, we wouldn't be doing anything until after we have a permitted developer, like public meetings, right?
Right.
For developer approval. So, I think at this point, best case, we're looking at the October.
And in the meantime, we'd also be speaking to the elected officials and, other people who are opining on what they want the process to look like as well.
If we have any recommendations, can we email you?
We're figuring that out. We'll email.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be, I would really like to see kind of the outline of the engagement process be presented to the board here for us, not just find out about it at the first meeting. But
You mean the calendar?
Could try to schedule this in September where we come back and we say, this is what it looks
what types of input we're looking
Yeah.
for, how we're going to get it, when we're going to do it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think we do need to have that.
So you want a meeting in September?
That's why I suggested a meeting in September.
Okay, so back to the dates.
So back to the Monday or Tuesday at the end of September? 29th, 30th?
We can September
17th.
For the 17th, didn't work?
Not.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And the week of the 10th was the process.
16th.
That looks good.
I think I just need to, I need to double check the travel schedule when I'm, I think I'm coming back on the 15th, but I need to double check.
16th.
No holidays that week.
No. Last chance for no holidays for a while. after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
While we're, I guess people are checking their calendars, just a couple other things on the engagement. And Anna mentioned elected officials. I think it's really important that the elected officials are plugged in here. This project overlaps 2 city council districts, 2 assembly districts. Fortunately, only 1 state senate district and a borough president. So
Congress member also talks to us.
yeah, a couple of Congress members one who's lives very nearby the project and another one whose district it's actually in. But I also think it's really important that we find a way to engage a couple of the agencies of the city, especially the Department of Transportation and the NYPD. The Department of Transportation is doing they're in the process of coming up with a major redesign of Flatbush or bus lanes. And that whole intersection of Flatbush and Atlantic where the project is located is, I think everybody understands, kind of a dumpster fire of an intersection, and it really needs attention. And I don't know if you've spoken with DOT yet, but it would be, I think, very important to get commitment from them.
We've talked about the area with DOT in the past, generally when it comes to traffic matters, but we can engage them.
Yeah, I mean, they committed to do
city planning.
Well,
city
I
planning.
mean, we do have a representative of the city here, so we could, and then could you help us?
Yeah, DOT agreed to do a traffic study of Atlantic Avenue as part of the AIM-UP rezoning. And so they're somewhat engaged, but I think we really need to plug them into this. And I think we also need to really engage the NYPD as well, around arena related issues, issues related to parking, issues related to crowds, issues related to the whole situation with delivery around that part of on Flatbush Avenue, and quite frankly, parking.
I would just add an MTA into that too.
I assume MTA is in the mix.
It's
It's going to be, but that's again, is it MTA Long Island Railroad or MTA?
No, it's been,
Not
Long Island Railroad, but yes.
Is there MTA review required for Site 5 as well? I would assume so, because there's
not from like a permitted developer perspective, but for the design, I'm sure, because it's gonna be over the subway. Yeah.
So I think those we all should be lining up commitment from those agencies to participate in this process.
That's helpful.
Confirm that I'm coming back 15th, so I could meet on the 16th.
The 16th? The secretary.
No,
All right.
Google.
Okay, so we'll officially poll.
Okay. We're getting there. Yeah, I think the next item on the agenda is time for public comments. So, are there any members of the public present who would like to speak? Mr. Puka.
Before I speak, I've submitted questions 2 meetings in a row now. It's the second meeting. The first meeting I submitted questions, they said they were going to get an answer back for the meeting that they postponed. And now we're at this meeting. I haven't heard any of my questions that I submitted answered. Why you talk about transparency, you talk about community engagement. Why am I submitting questions if no one's talking about them, no one's answering them? That's number one. So before I make my public comment, I'd like to get the questions that I submitted answers, and not we'll figure it out next time. I would like to get some answers. Why am I submitting questions?
Well, the opportunity is for public comment. You've chosen to submit your comments in the form of questions, but there isn't a requirement that every one of those questions be answered by the agency. I think that we did request that your questions be taken under advisement by the agency, and it's true we haven't had a forum in which though they were specifically addressed in, as your questions, but I think there's been a lot of information shared that was responsive to those questions.
Are you sure about that? I mean, can you ask the staff? Because I think there's an email that says, if you have questions, send them to this email. It doesn't say anything about, it's a comment. It says if you have questions. I don't know. Does the
No, it says
invitation
says if you have comments on the agenda.
If you have comments on the agenda, so you've chosen to form them you've chosen to submit them in the form of questions, but there isn't a requirement that the agency actually, go question by question and respond to them.
And then for the record, they were provided to each of the directors, both for the July meeting.
And we haven't
submit them, and they have copies here at their seats, and they're also posted online.
And there's been a lot of information discussed and shared at this meeting that a good amount of which is responsive to some of the questions.
How much time do I have to come?
You have 2 minutes now.
Okay, so let me say this. I've been going to these meetings for 20 years. I've seen different people at ESD. I've been going through this for 20 years. It's all BS. Community engagement, it's all BS. You know how many charrettes and information things have sat in? None of it gets incorporated. Whatever the developer wants, he gets. And now you guys, you're not collecting the liquidated damages. You have a settlement with Brooklyn Speaks. You're worried about being sued by Greenland because they're bringing up unavoidable delays, but you're not worried about being sued by Brooklyn Speaks, by the people you're a member of the settlement. What does that say about you guys right there? So that's my first comment. Second comment is you never collected damages on the urban room. Was that a $10 or $11 million penalty? That just disappeared into the Netherlands. What happened? Why are we collecting those damages? That's $11 million, which could also go into the affordable housing that's desperately, desperately needed in that neighborhood that was promised. I really, really hope that Brooklyn Speaks sues you guys. I really hope, I'm thinking about suing you guys because it's the only way that you listen. It's the only way that anything happens if you get sued. Now, you also want to bail out Greenland. You're going to give them more subsidies, more bulk. What are the benefits to the public for that? What are the benefits to the community? I've been living next to this project, like I said, since 2002. My quality of life and everyone's quality of life in the neighborhood has gone downhill. You never hired a quality of life monitor. There's no, if you want to know what the community wants, the community would like someone they could actually speak to when there's a problem on the ground and they could call somebody and get it fixed in real time. That would be wonderful. That would be a first step. A second step would be if you're going to give the developers more bulk, provide the financials. There's no financials. This project, it's the same thing as the BMT project. No financials. Where does the financial viability of this project? I haven't seen it. It hasn't been presented to any of these meetings. How much time do I have? Am I done? Okay.
I'll give you a little leeway.
We don't need to survey what the community wants. what the community wants. The community wants the liquidated damages collected. They want that money to be put into affordable housing. That's what the community wants. It's an agreement. You signed it, stick to it, no postponing, none of that. Just collect the damage and collect the $11 million for the urban route. Okay? If you can't collect the developers, I can't pronounce his name, Josiah who owns the Nets. He is getting free access to that urban room, to that space. He's not paying a cent for it. And why don't you have him pay to form a community quality of life group at least? That would be something the community could take back. And this way we could say, hey, you know what? That's a way to build us some trust. Because right now the community doesn't trust anything you say. Because with all due respect to everyone in this room, with all due respect to staff, I've been through so many different staff, and it's just the same thing said over and over again. And I don't mean, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make any comments? Okay. Hearing none, any new business?
Just following up on the last comment, to that list of other stakeholders to add to the engagement process, I think you need to get the Barclay Center folks involved as well. They need to be in it.
By the way, that space is now intensely used by Barclay Center.
Oh, yeah.
Intensely, and it's privately used, but it's public space. And so there is a reason for sitting down with they've become billionaires off that site.
I mean,
they were rich
to that point. I just have a process question. I mean, like, for example, they recently had the gallery portraits up, I think. Did they have to, was there some sort of approval that they sought for that, or did they submit a plan for that or anything?
Is that on portion?
It was
In the plaza.
It's in the plaza. It's on the plaza. I don't know what, I mean, what's the process there? Do they have free reign to just put up something like that? I'm not commenting on whether it's good or bad.
I don't want to hazard an answer to that, so we can.
Yeah, let's look into that, because
I thought that was one of the questions.
yes. Okay, anything further from anyone? Not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Motion granted.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
I was thinking 966 volts.
And it's